Step 5. Think about report outputs. Before we decide which fields to put onto the various forms of our CRM system, we need to have a think about the reporting output. Nowadays, many of the CRM systems available negate the old traditional need for customized reports by providing easily created dashboards, charts and dynamic views, such as the sales pipeline dashboard in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. But it's well worth deciding from the outset what outputs the various departments will need from the system, because that's going to affect what we decide we need to have as an input. And even think about what sort of things the users would like to see on a useful dashboard, for example. Whenever you're designing reports for managers or for departments, a really good tip is to always draw out the report on a piece of paper. This will help later when adding fields, because you'll know then what fields need to be added to the CRM in order to produce the reporting requirements. And these diagrams are also very useful for anyone who has to write these custom reports for your system. Step 6. Fields and data capture. So by now we know what our goals are, and we should now be very familiar with them. And we pretty much know the processes that are to be mapped into CRM. Now it's time to think about the CRM system design and data capture. Don't forget, all the time you spend on this upfront planning, you will be saving your company money by shortening the amount of time your vendor or supplier needs to spend conducting requirements gathering workshops and scoping meetings and the like. Even though you may not have extensive knowledge about your chosen CRM product yet, you can still have a think about the various forms and fields that you'll need to be working on with your new system. For example, you're going to have a record for an organization or a company. You're also going to have records for contacts, leads, opportunities, possibly service cases and quotes too. Take each one of these entities in turn and decide what's the minimum amount of data you need to capture on each one. And there's a difference between want and need, so maybe prioritize as well here. On a sales opportunity, for example, you might need the following: product range, line items, a time frame, so a start date and an end date. You might want to allocate a salesperson. You might want to set a probability and an amount and a sales stage, for example. A word of warning, don't get too carried away, because the more fields and forms and customizations that you create, the more user adoption hurdles you're putting up. But it can also end up being quite costly to maintain and support if you over-egg the pudding too. Albert Einstein summed it up very concisely when he said, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler." In other words, decide what's the minimum required to meet your goals and then implement that. Step 7. Identify your data sources. In our experience, by far and away the biggest cause of project delays is to do with our customers consolidating data ready to go into the new CRM system. It's very common for people to underestimate how long this exercise can take. There are various ways in which this can be approached, and this depends upon how much the customer wants to do themselves and how much they want to pay a provider like us to do for them. Probably the most cost-effective way to deal with data imports is to ask your CRM provider to give you a template or templates that you just populate with your data and then that are ready to go straight into CRM. Sometimes that's not always possible, and you may have data sitting in an existing CRM system and in people's Outlook contacts folders or in spreadsheets, so in various different places. Once you've located the data, you need to ask a few questions. How clean is the data? How old or how relevant is the data? How much do we want to import? Do we just want to take all this junk from one old system and put it all into our new CRM system? If we're importing history, for example, how far do we want to go back? 1 year? 2 years? 7 years?